Right, Ivan Walanyolo, thank you very much for that update. Yes, you're watching Morning at NTV. My name is Rome Busiku. Dixon Kadeshumba, MP, Shema Municipality, he's already here. Sarah Birete, the Executive Director, Center for Constitutional Governance, she's already here to talk about what is taking center stage within the Greater Masaka sub-region, where close to 30 people have been hacked by machete-wielding unscrupulous thugs. Yes, they are still rearing their very ugly heads within that jurisdiction. That won't be the only conversation. We shall also go to Karamoja. Insecurity that is growing within that area. Cattle rustling is taking center stage. The home village of the DPP, that is the Director of Public Prosecution, Jane Francis Abodo. Yes, she was ransacked. And the cattle rustlers made away with 580 heads of cattle. How emboldened are they getting? Super emboldened. They even made, as they were actually making their getaway, they passed near this presidential state lodge where the president was actually living in the Karamoja sub-region, meaning these attackers are becoming so much emboldened. So we shall talk about that. And also Rwanda. The issue of Rwanda. The government has actually reached out to the Rwandese government to talk about the bilateral agreement that was signed in March around 2019. You remember the mediation between Angola, DRC and Uganda, including Rwanda. Yes, they were trying to fast track the implementation of those bilateral agreements that was signed in 2019. But then Rwanda is saying they're not ready to talk. They are not ready to do any talking with Uganda, but they shall do follow-up dialogue, whatever that means. I have Kadeshumba and Sarah already here to make sense of this and a lot more. Very good morning, Sarah and Dixon.
Good morning, and
all right,
and the viewers.
Let's kick off with Masaka. Very contentious situation that is happening or unfolding within that jurisdiction. You have the government that contends, or security apparatus that believe opposition has a hand in the deaths that have taken center stage within the region. You have two opposition MPs, Alan Sewanyana, Makinde West. You have Mohammed Segirinya, yes, that is Kawempe North, who were incarcerated on murder and attempted murder charges for hacking 3 people and also trying to kill a 4th one. Do you really think it's really the opposition that is behind all these machinations within the Greater Masaka sub-region, or is it, according to some of the unverified reports coming in, Rwanda, the invisible hand? Let's talk about that and a lot more. Go ahead. I'll start with you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. I think crime has no political color, and it is wrong for anybody to politicize crime, especially violent crime.
Indeed.
That involves taking lives of people. Uganda, you know, for a country to be regarded as stable, there are 4 parameters. One of the parameters is the well-being of the citizens. Do we have rule of law? Do we have economic progress? Do we have balanced regional development? Do we have stable neighborhood? If you scan through the neighborhood, we have South Sudan, which is unstable, I think, for more than 2 decades now.
Indeed.
We have the Somalia, you know, Karamoja corridor, which is a corridor for proliferation of small arms and light weapons right up to Ethiopia, which is very unstable. We have Burundi, very unstable. We have Rwanda with a closed border. So it is highly unlikely that Uganda would pass a test of a stable country, both internally and the neighborhood. The other key element on a stable country would be the security architecture, the professionalism, the training, the recruitment. So I think our security architecture only fails the test of being non-partisan. They are highly trained, educated, but their conduct internally fails the test of professionalism. They have been praised out of Uganda, but internally the conduct really leaves a lot to be desired.
So there is a lot of partisanship within security. Is that the reason why Jim Muhwezi,
yes.
Major General Jim Muhwezi, the security minister, is adamant to let these MPs actually sift for more information as far as the killings are concerned within the Greater Masaka sub-region? Could it be that government is orchestrating a partisan investigation, that they do not want MPs to get involved?
And I think Honorable Jim Muhwezi was completely out of order in the statement he made in Masaka. It's very unfortunate. But away from that, so if you scan through the characters of a stable nation, we fall short as a country. But now we have these persistent conflicts. I think in Masaka it is happening for the first time, the killings. For me, the arrest of MPs if they are involved in crime. I mean, they are not above the law. But the unfortunate bit is the immediate past of massacre conflicts, where the IGP was on a press conference with people who immediately contradicted him, and he was embarrassed. And that is not the only incident. So that confirmed that really those killings in 2017 were stage managed. Beyond that, you've seen criminal elements. So you know, this man of Border 2010, all of them who are militias promoted by state agencies. So I hope that this is not the same situation.
So you believe in 2017 the situation was stage managed?
Of course, wasn't it confirmed where IGP Kale Kiura was embarrassed? The people he had gathered to address media, and then they said, but we met you, you gave us money, you even have our balance. Wasn't that clear that it was stage
There is
managed?
a gang that was netted, Sarah Birete. Even the lead of the gang, Mohammed, was actually lynched in Masaka Trading Center.
There was crime, and there was killing of people, including, of course, the famous Chidawari men now that the president talked about.
Yes.
But the people that the IGP had gathered contradicted him, and the evidence is still available, saying we agreed with you at hotel calendar, you know, and even you have a balance of money. So I hope that that element is not there. The second element is what we witnessed in Arua.
Yes.
Where the state alleged that Bobi Wine had guns in his room. Do we know where those guns went up today? What happened to those guns? And who owned them? So those are some of the issues that have happened in the past that cast doubt on whether indeed these MPs are involved or not. But we are waiting to see. We hope the due process would be followed. And we shall wait for evidence in court to see indeed whether they are involved or not.
All right, we do know that 10 of the people who are incarcerated at Masaka Saza prison actually pinpointed Alan Sewanyana and also Hamad Segirinya as the perpetrators who actually paid them to orchestrate these killings. You do have a group of people who are actually incarcerated on September 1st. Yes, they shall be adduced in court on Wednesday this very week. They said, pinpointed actually, they said Alan Sewanyana and Hamad Segirinya sent us. So this couldn't be stage managed by the state.
Where opposition politics are concerned in this country, we have heard of several confessions before, including the so-called People's Redemption Army case that collapsed with Jennifer, who was being coached by the state on how to testify. So there is nothing new. I hope that this time, these things are not stage managed. Because we have seen all these things before, they collapse in courts, because evidence is concocted, so-called people pinning the opposition leaders are coached, and of course courts have capacity to determine whether something is true or false.
Dixon Kateshumba, is the state actually stage managing this situation? Like Sarah Birete contends. You do have 70 people who have been arrested. 10 have made it to Masaka Saza Court, Masaka Chief Magistrate's Court, yes, and they were sent to Masaka Saza Prison. And these 10 suspects pinpointed Muhammad Segiri in Nyakawempe North and Alan Sewanyana Makindi West as the collaborators who are instigating these attacks within the Masaka Greater Sub-region. But she says all of this has been stage managed before and still is by the government.
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. First of all, I want to really commiserate with the victims of this crime. It's not only in Masaka that it happened. We experienced it in Shema and lost an old man who was hacked in one of the wards. The motive may be different, but I returned from Shema yesterday, and previous nights, police and the security netted so many criminals who are being processed. Secondly, we condemn the people who are behind the murders in the strongest possible terms, especially the fact that they are targeting, you know, certain categories of people.
Indeed, the elderly,
women,
helpless.
Now, the colleagues who have been arrested, obviously the matter is in court now. We cannot We cannot go into discussing the merits and demerits of the case.
But are there linkages?
But as colleagues in Parliament, what we expect is a fair trial for them. Like Sarah has said, anyone who is involved in crime, regardless of the position, is not above the law. What we would like to see eventually is the purpose for which they have been arrested. The state should be able to adduce evidence so that they get fair trial, and we learn from that. But most importantly, what I would like to say about these killings is that it's a very, very big challenge on the part of security. We appreciate what security has done in the last couple of days to be able to contain the situation to some extent, but it showed the glaring gaps in terms of security architecture, especially the intelligence system, because every village, every parish in this country has got the security, the internal security officers. We have police, we have intelligence. So what we were wondering is how this could happen over a period of time, and there is no system to detect it. So that is a very big challenge for police.
Does that mean our intelligence system had faltered and failed over the years, in that when we had these attacks taking center stage, the system had fallen apart already? Because we had the protests that took center stage within November of 2020, many of the NUP supporters were being arrested and then investigated when they were already in the jails, meaning intelligence was not working very well to get this information. They had to first arrest people or abduct them, as some of the reports were actually contending. They abduct you, then they grill you to get information. But according to intelligence, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to investigate someone, then you get the information, then you arrest them. But they were doing the opposite. Does that mean that even before Massacre, we were failing in the intelligence field?
You know, security is... insecurity sometimes does not come with forewarnings.
All right.
And every country in this world has got problems of security. It can come in any form and sometimes catch people unawares. But what we are saying is that for a sustained period of time, like a month, you know, when we are having a curfew imposed, we expected our security to do much better than that. We need to see a lot of community policing, you know, engaging the people. This is what I was telling the police in Shema. Don't sit and be reactive. Perhaps get to know what is happening to the communities, where you have new elements that have come in the communities. They need to be known. This country has tried to register everyone with a national ID. But you may find there are people who are, who are living under here from maybe different areas, and they can be a source of insecurity. So what we need to see is more work on the side of police and intelligence agencies to be able to nip some of these challenges in the bud. They have done well. They have reacted, contained the situation so far, and we commend the police. I don't want to impute, assume, what many people, sometimes assume to be, issues of stage management, etc. What we want to see is at the end of the process, what is the outcome? And we shall probably be back in the studios or somewhere else discussing what happened to this situation.
Of course, what comes to your mind when you hear that some of your MPs on the Internal Affairs and Defense Committee were actually barred from receiving much of the information that was taking center stage within the Massacre sub-region? If the MPs who speak on behalf of the citizens are not allowed to be part of these investigations, won't you believe that that's why people like Sarah Bireta come up with pointers to say maybe government is stage managing this when it comes to the information that is coming out?
Addition, even the OC who talked to the MPs who was arrested.
We are going to talk about that. Go ahead.
Of course, it was unfortunate. Nobody should come in the way of the MPs' work. The Internal Affairs Committee, headed by my colleague Rosemary, was doing its oversight work. There was everyone's concern, about this. We discussed it in Parliament. So we expected the committee responsible to go on ground, supplement the efforts by other agencies. If the state had fears about, information, they could meet the committee in camera prior and say, this is the information we have. Some of it is sensitive. Maybe we wouldn't want you to get in here. But to publicly, appear as if you are frustrating the parliament's work is not acceptable. And I think that maybe we shall have an opportunity to discuss that matter in Parliament.
Well, of course, also the OC, officer in charge of, that is Masaka Police Station, yes. Mr. Morris Abongo, was also arrested for 3 days, interrogated for diverging much of this information to the MPs on the Internal Affairs and Defense Committee.
Like I've said, you see, these officers have to be protected. There is no way a committee of Parliament, which has got, powers to ask and summon these officers, they invite you to give information, and you don't give information. So there is no crime the officer would have made if the Minister of Security thought there is sensitive information that does not need to be disclosed. There are practices where these committees have done work within, in camera, and you share with them your concerns so that they don't have to call your officers to be exposed. But having called them, then you react and use a heavy hammer on the officer. I think it's just, it is something that they should reconsider.
Sarah Birete, should members of parliament be confined to oversight roles rather than investigations? Do you really feel they should be really immersed in the investigations taking center stage within Masaka and other parts of the country where insecurity has been burgeoning lately?
I saw the minister in charge of security in the media saying, we are government. Government has 3 arms.
He said it's the mandate of the executive to do these investigations and not parliament, only oversight on their part.
Yeah, but you see, the government has 3 arms: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary.
Indeed.
And these arms of government are interlinked, and they should be able to complement each other. But the legislature has an oversight function. So I think really, first of all, if Parliament was moving to interact with people in Masaka, and they had not invited the minister, I think the minister was out of order on that front, and I don't think he was invited. Second, the minister trying to interfere and block the work of Parliament was very, very unfortunate. It's a demonstration of impunity of the highest level. Unfortunately, Honorable Jim has a record of having been censured before for impunity, and he's exhibiting impunity in the shortest time he's back in the cabinet. Very unfortunate. So I think really he should not try to interfere with the work of Parliament, because it's provided for in the Constitution. And for the officer who was, invited.
Morris Abongo.
Yes. Withholding information from a committee of Parliament amounts to contempt. It is the same charge as contempt of court. So then you arrest an OC for doing his work, for not violating the function of Parliament. Really, this impunity. And this is what is causing suspicion. Because if Parliament has its function to oversee these works, and the people are dying, these are people's representatives, and you don't want them to know the cause, then what are you hiding?
Indeed. Dixon Kadeshumba, what are you hiding as government?
Well, I am a parliamentarian. I believe that Parliament has got its mandate, and at all times we wouldn't expect, anyone to stand in the way. I think we shall seek explanation on the floor of Parliament on this matter, because like my colleague has said, the committee, notified everyone that they are going into the field. And they were responding to a situation. I don't know how many times we discussed the issue of massacre on the floor of Parliament, but it was a national concern. Our colleagues raised it, and it spread. So for anyone to think that going and interacting with the community, to get information, is not the work of government. We are part of, government as Parliament. We are the one that appropriate money that goes to security. The same minister will have to appear before the committees to justify his budget, to present his ministerial policy statement. So you cannot go and block the work of Parliament and say that we are government and you are not. That is not acceptable.
All right.
But we will probably hear from him the explanation he has. But I think that the officer involved is just a victim of, you know, high-handedness. An officer cannot be summoned by Parliament to give information, and he doesn't. When you know, he's not protected. So the minister should have informed the committee chairperson that maybe there is information that we would want not to be publicly disclosed. And I believe that our colleagues would have, you know, acted otherwise. But to go in and then they start and then you appear and you try to frustrate, no.
Dixon, the biggest chunk of our money from the budget went to security. Now, what comes to your mind? Are you concerned that we were seeing a low deployment of security forces within the Greater Masaka sub-region, despite the fact that we gave too much money in our budget to security? Even as these attacks took center stage, there was low visibility of members of the police force, security apparatus within this region. And that's why we are concerned and asking ourselves, where did the money in the budget go to?
You know, when you look at, when you want to use Masaka as a yardstick for measuring security.
There's Karamoja and we are going there.
Yes, but I know that you are aware that you can drive from here anytime and cross the country safe. These spontaneous occurrences that are happening, as I said, are a challenge, and we expect our security architecture to pick them out. But generally, I think if you compare ourselves with within the area, we have done very well on security. Now, what goes on in that security is a lot, you know. There is a lot that goes on, so you cannot measure the budget that goes on security using the yardstick of Masaka to say that the country is insecure. I think there is a lot that the government has done, but of course our expectations, we don't expect a crime like what happened in Masaka to go on a sustainable way for a month, you know, if it is, and even a Karamoja. Security, there is a lot that goes in to keep our borders safe, to keep our country secure, and these internal conflicts, these internal issues need to be dealt with, you know, to give comfort to the people.
Dixon, you said the country is secure, then I gave you the example of Karamoja. You do know that Jane Francis Abodo's home village was attacked by cattle rustlers. They made away with 580 heads of cattle. That's how emboldened they are getting. If you were a secure country, such machinations wouldn't be taking center stage, wouldn't you agree? They even passed Morilinga State Lodge, where the president was living.
Of course, we are all concerned about Karamoja. Karamoja has been a problem. Our colleagues from the region, the members of parliament, have been crying out. And there was disarmament process that was largely successful before 2007. And I think along the way, something may not have been done right, and the insecurity, you know, started resurrecting. So everyone wants to see Karamoja situation resolved. It is affecting the communities. I'm glad the president has camped there. Probably we shall see a very different approach and better results.
All right, another example of the growing insecurity in the country, Sarah Birete, Karamoja. You do have the president camping there since Friday. That does not stop the attacks of the cattle rustlers from continuing to rear their very ugly heads. That does spell the situation in the country that we are becoming more insecure than we were before.
I did mention the parameters for a secure country.
Indeed.
And where we fall short. So picking on the aspect of development, what is the economic well-being of Karamoja people that should stop them from rustling, which used to be their main economic activity? After disarmament, were they economically empowered? Oh, we saw people moving in for land grabbing, for whatever, fighting for minerals in Karamoja, instead of empowering the community to settle and have viable economic activities that would stop them from rustling cattle. That did not happen. We also know that Karamoja is prone to dry season, long dry seasons that do not allow farming without mitigating factors of irrigation. There are efforts to do irrigation in Karamoja, but these interventions are really a drop in the ocean. We do not have a proper resettlement program for the people of Karamoja to move away from their main economic activity that was previously cattle rustling. And this is what the government needs to address, to have Karamoja as a region be regarded as a stable part of Uganda.
A multifaceted conversation I'm having with Dickson Kateshumba, MP, Shema Municipality, and also Sarah Birete, the ED for the Center for Constitutional Governance. We shall take a very short break and return with more on this very, very pertinent conversation. Keep it here. Welcome back to Morning at NTV. My name is Rome Busika. Still do have Dickson Kateshumba, MP, Shema Municipality, and also Sarah Birete, the Executive Director, Center for Constitutional Governance. We are talking about the growing insecurity within the country, Karamoja, Greater Masaka sub-region, and many other pockets of our resistance that have been noticed or registered within some jurisdictions or districts within the country. We shall also talk about the threat coming in from Rwanda. Yes, we've extended an olive branch to talk to the country that is Rwanda, but then they are adamant to speak to us, saying we have continued to torture, arrest, and also abduct their citizens and deport them incommunicado. So that's why they are not willing to talk to us. But then they are saying they will do follow-up dialogue, whatever that means. I still do have Sarah and Dickson Kateshumba. We are still in Karamoja. The growing insecurity, what could we attribute this to, Sarah Birete? Because in Masaka, well, some people are saying it's the politicians, some people are saying it is the ADF, others are saying it is poverty. Young people are being taken advantage of, being paid off by unscrupulous individuals. When you look at Karamoja, what could be the problem? Cattle rustling and the insecurity, poverty alike, despite the minerals within this area?
You know, in Masaka, first of all, in addition to what you've said,
yes, I
saw the statement by the Honorable Minister of Internal Affairs,
yes,
saying it's because it's in the hands of NUP, which I think also, so there is another addition, which I think was unfortunate, and maybe should be withdrawn at an appropriate forum.
Indeed. Go ahead.
So, but on Karamoja, you know, Karamoja is one of the richest regions in terms of natural resources. It has marble, it has high quantities of marble that can last 55 years of exploitation. We have gold, uranium, cobalt, and so many other minerals. The challenge, other than having neglected Karamoja for some time, the challenge is that people who have interfaced with the region are more interested in smuggling the minerals in a way that cannot benefit the people, first of all, and the country.
So you're saying the disarmament exercise that ended in 2007 was meant to disarm these warriors so that these people could have leeway to smuggle out?
No. The disarmament was meant to change the lifestyle of the people of Karamoja so that they stop depending on the gun and rustling cattle as a source of livelihood, and engage in productive activities like any other, like other citizens in the other parts of Uganda. So, but also Karamoja is semi-arid, and it finds itself in the heart of the arms smuggling corridor, with the route to Kenya, with the route to Somalia, and all the way to Ethiopia, in the other cattle rustling communities in these countries. So when you disarm people, saying I'm going to change, give you other economic activities to engage in, the next economic activity for the people was agriculture, but which needs irrigation, because Karamoja is semi-arid. Irrigation, proper seedlings, proper agricultural extension services. I don't think this was done. So the people then, whether you take away their arms today, because they are in the arms corridor, they can acquire arms tomorrow. From the neighboring country. Yes. So I think they've acquired arms again. People are dying of hunger. We have already seen Karamoja children are full on Kampala streets because of hunger and poverty. There is no other region causing the exodus of Karamoja children on our streets. So that has never been addressed. Then you find the people very impoverished, working with an old cloth, even with their own way of living. Even they do not have proper clothes to tie around their shoulders. They tie, very pathetic kind of clothing, and this has, has created the gap between them and the way they view elites, especially the leaders, because there is no connection. So you have a region that is the most underdeveloped region in Uganda, with the highest poverty levels, but also with the mineral rich, resources. And the leadership that goes there, I know some of these things are unreported, are more interested in exploiting the minerals, not in an official way, than empowering the people of Karamoja.
Because we were wondering if this jurisdiction of Karamoja is rife with minerals, how come there is lesser development? That's what we were grappling with.
Maybe Honorable, since he has the figures, he should tell us how much do we get from the minerals in Karamoja, officially from the official channels.
Before I go to Dixon Kateshumba, Sarabirete, you mentioned something about a bias, that maybe the residents or the people within Karamoja are growing some kind of bias towards politicians. Could it be the reason why we are seeing this targeted cattle rustling, being targeting maybe the DPP, Gen Francis Abodo? You've also had Lieutenant General Andrew Guti, the chairman of the General Court Martial. You know him. Yes. 3 times he's been a victim this very year. Does that mean that these cattle rustlers are now targeting those people whom they have a bias on, especially if you're working for the government, and they feel you've been, maybe you've lost the ball when it comes to service delivery, so they should maybe revenge? Is this some kind of revenge on part of the warriors?
The tradition with cattle rustling is because that when they are on a raid, they will go and pick cattle wherever it is. So if it is,
do you think it is specific DPP?
Of course there are income disparities.
Yes.
So maybe the income disparities have driven the cattle to remain in this water to do homes.
I see.
But for them the practice is they are on a raid, they will raid the cattle wherever it is and bring it home. So this cattle happens to be confined now in the world to do people that are privileged.
I see. All right, Dixon Kateshumba, help us understand the scope of the magnitude of what we are dealing with right here as far as insecurity is concerned within Karamoja. What are you attributing this to as parliamentarians? What could be the problem according to your oversight investigations?
Well, I visited Karamoja about 2.5 years ago.
Yes, Dixon.
When I was doing my other duties then, and I was amazed at how rich that area is in terms of minerals. I know that the colleagues whom I had then told me that what you are seeing now in Karamoja is way much better than the way Karamoja was. So there has been significant, improvement in the welfare of the people from the past, how things were to now. There is a change you can easily notice.
Yes.
But there is still a very, very big problem. You can still see a lot of challenges. Poverty is telling. The other good thing is that the infrastructure has been done. The roads, I think what is remaining is connecting the Karamoja sector all the way to Mbale to open up that, but there is a Maram road that connects straight. The borders are there, they are open, new borders. But I think that the approach to disarmament needed to be accompanied by a replacement activity that is sustainable.
Indeed.
For people to be able to deal with the economic situation.
Other than pastoralism.
And I think the same mistake is being done. I recently saw a minister who was saying, bring the gun, I give you how many kilos of maize or something. That is just a one-off. We need to evaluate what has happened over the last 10 years. You had all these programs, NUSAF 1, 2, and Karamoja Action Plan. All these have, a lot of money has been sunk into that region. But the fact that, rustling has come back, you are now dealing with the situation of culture on our side, but also on the side of Kenya. And you know, culture is something that is deeply rooted, that you cannot easily, eliminate. So if people have the animals, what can you do? Protect their animals, but what can you do as an alternative? If you expect someone who has been a farmer, looking after cows, to change suddenly
crop growing,
go into maize
to be hard
growing, it's a very wrong assumption. So there has to be a discussion, particularly with the leaders. We have very many young MPs now from Karamoja, very bright young men and women who have perhaps they need to be more engaged. They understand their communities. They need to be engaged. What can government do? These minerals in Karamoja, I know now that we are making marble tiles from Karamoja. Karamoja has a lot of marble and many other minerals. What can be done, to focus on, the resources they have to transform the area? Because without transforming the people's economic lives, you will not resolve the issue of security.
Dixon, can you also transform people's lives without including them in the planning that you have for them? Because you do have people of Karamoja who have risen up and they've said, why are you sending us people who have never lived or stayed in Karamoja to actually draw up plans for the people of Karamoja? I'm talking about Nandutu. You understand what I'm saying? They're saying, can we have representatives from the Karamoja region who understand the area, what we've been grappling with? We are planning for someone using some people who have never lived in this jurisdiction. Could that be the problem?
This is what I'm saying. I have said I've interacted. Many of the colleagues from Karamoja are my friends in Parliament, young, vibrant men and women who have got ideas. Maybe they may not be, if you don't want them to be ministers, they need to be engaged. They need to be involved. I see a lot of them, I have a lot of pain on some of the programs that have happened.
Indeed.
Because, the practice of throwing things to the people
without consulting them,
understanding what is the problem that the people need, and you properly prepare them, is a very, it's something that needs to be looked at. So the leadership can be engaged. And of course, the government needs to have a security plan for Karamoja that works, protect the Karamojong against the invaders from the outside,
so that they are not forced to arm themselves.
So that they are not forced to, defend themselves or react. Once that is done, then you now focus on the internal. Discuss with the leaders what is the challenge, what can be done, and you have work with model examples that can set an example for the rest. Then of course look at the issue of minerals. If we are harvesting a lot of minerals,
Dixon,
what goes back into the community? There are laws in this country. There are issues of royalties. Maybe something special, can be considered.
Most of the money is leaving the country. Yes, Dixon.
Yes.
All right. One of the antidotes that have come about, people were saying maybe we should offer security to these pastoralists as they go about their business, just like the same way we are doing for our truck drivers who are plying the Nimule-Juba road that is so much dangerous, and they were saying they needed some kind of security. So do you think the same could be feasible for the pastoralists, UPDF, offering them security as we disarm them?
You see, the whatever action that has to be done, must be sustainable.
Indeed, the feasibility.
You don't have 1 million troops lined up in the, you need to have something that is
sustainable.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have an opportunity of the parish model, parish development model.
Yes.
The parish development model should give affirmative action.
Before you go to the parish development model, let's talk about escorting them.
Yes.
Not feasible at all?
No, not feasible, because it's not even sustainable.
Yeah.
So, but it's not sustainable. What the Karamoja people need is sustainable development, so that they have no urge or desire to still go back to their pastoral ways of rustling cattle for a livelihood. Because they don't do it as a sport. They don't do it for tourism. They do it to survive. So how do you create survival away from their main economic activity? That is the issue that, yes, the parish development model should give affirmative action to regions that have high poverty, both by GDP level and dimensional level per household. That is Karamoja, Northern Uganda at 76%, Eastern Uganda at 57%, and Kigeza at 49%. Let the parish model first to roll out in these regions to bring them to speed to other regions. Then they roll out to the parish model countrywide after the affirmative action.
Of course, Dixon Kadeshumba did say something about the feasibility of that, having a pastoralist switch all the way from being a cattle herder to becoming a farmer. Don't you think that would be hard for them, Sarah Biret?
No. You can empower them to do normal farming through the parish model, because the parish model, the people are supposed to be empowered depending on their strengths, the issues they like, and how best they understand that economic activity. So you can empower them to do normal farming. You need also to do proper irrigation in this region because it is semi-arid. So if they are to engage in farming, what are the government interventions to do proper irrigation for these people? Because when you look at the way Karamojong die of poverty and hunger in this country, with even no ability, no capacity of the government to take food to the people when food is thrown in other regions, like the West. At times you see the West, they are powering milk. Matoke is even 500 shillings. We even have no mechanism to say there is surplus in this region, people are dying of hunger in this region, let's find a way of taking them food. Even that does not happen with Karamoja.
Away from the parish development model, what other antidotes, Sarah Biret, do we have for this region, Karamoja?
We must make sure there are royalties for people smuggling minerals from the Karamojong, because this is their natural wealth that they are entitled to benefit from as a region. So we need the proper exploitation of these minerals and royalties going back to develop the region.
All right.
Then once you have economic activity and services, the people can settle down. But now you take away their arms and say settle in your house and die of hunger. How do you do that?
At 8:34 a.m. you're still watching Morning at NTV. They switch this conversation to Rwanda. Yes, we've extended an invitation to this country, Sarah Biret, August 30th, to have an ad hoc meeting to discuss and verify the implementation of the agreement that was signed in 2019. Remember the mediation with Angola, DRC, and a host of other countries and strongmen who wanted to alleviate this impasse. But for close to 2 years now, yes, they've met 4 times, President Paul Kagame and President Museveni, but nothing has come to light as far as reopening of the Gatuna border is concerned or resolving the impasse. Do you have any hope that we might be able to solve this in the wake of, yes, the arrest, detention and the release of the Victoria University Vice Chancellor? Go ahead.
You know, the problem with Rwanda and Uganda is not amongst the people. The people of Uganda and the people of Rwanda enjoy cordial relations, are socially interlinked, and have interlinking economic activities.
That's what I've heard one too many times.
We have a problem at the leadership level. The leadership of Rwanda has a conflict with the leadership of Uganda. It has nothing to do with the people. So once we sort that out, you know, proper leadership requires magnanimity.
Maybe we should first talk about what they are accusing us of. Espionage. We are supporting rebels that want to actually remove President Paul Kagame and his government. We are also supporting hostile political groups within Rwanda that want to actually remove President Paul Kagame. We are arresting their citizens within Uganda, torturing them and deporting them back to Rwanda. That's what they are saying. So far we've exchanged some 6 bodies since 2019 of Ugandans who were killed within Rwanda and an unspecified number of Rwandans being sent back home.
You know, in that 2019 agreement, also Uganda was telling Rwanda to protect the rights of all people, stop persecuting its citizens. Yet Uganda is doing the same right here. Here, when you support opposition, it's a crime to support opposition. And then they are counter-choosing Rwanda of that practice. But away from that, Romeo, if these countries were interested in peace, we have enough mechanisms as a country, starting with the East African Community mechanisms, the Greater Lakes Region mechanisms, the Tripartite Plus mechanism. So we have enough mechanisms. It's not the issue of Rwanda agreement that should establish peace. Peace starts with people's hearts.
Indeed.
Peace comes with building trust and confidence.
Indeed.
So after negotiating that agreement, what confidence building measures have these leaders engaged in to make sure they resolve the bad blood between them and maybe the people directly under them? Because beyond that there is no conflict. It is the top leadership of these countries that must reconcile their differences and let the people of the two countries enjoy their cordial and social and economic relations.
All right, Dixon Kadeshumba, before I let you go, please give us your 2 cents on this matter. Rwanda, how come the tensions have been hard to resolve? What seems to be the problem?
Well, I think there is a lot of information that we may not be having as panelists here. I know there's been a lot of diplomatic work going on behind the scenes. But like my colleague has mentioned, I don't think there is bad relations between the people of Uganda and
there
Rwanda. And we are so much culturally intertwined and interlinked that this conflict cannot be sustained for a long time. Because you have a tribe in Uganda called Banyarwanda, which is constitutionally, recognized, and you have many people who have families across and here. So I think that we trust that the efforts of government through diplomacy will yield fruit. Of course, the anxiety among the people on both sides is that this has taken long. It has affected the trade. It has affected families. So we hope that, that effort will continue and result into some agreement so that, the two countries can continue to
Indeed, we need to normalize these relations, Dixon Kadeshumba. When you have people who are saying that Rwanda could be having a hand with what is happening within Masaka, that is usually a callous allegation or report.
See, when there is conflict,
a neighbor who is supposed to be a brotherly neighbor, and then you hear that they are instigating the crimes within Masaka Greater Region.
When there is an unresolved conflict, you start having, accusations, assumptions. It reminds me during campaigns, someone would look behind you and think that your opponent is following you all over, because so the situation does not it gives a lot of room for speculation and accusations. But I think we need to allow the diplomacy to do its part. The two principals plus their representatives, I imagine there are still channels of communications that are still open, and we are all hoping that sooner or later, at some point, this matter will be resolved.
All right, Dixon Kadeshumba, thank you very much. He is the MP for Shema Municipality, and also had Sarah Birete. Thank you very much for having made the time to speak to us. She is the ED for the Center for Constitutional Governance. You're still watching Morning at NTV. It was a multifaceted conversation. We're largely talking about the growing insecurity within the region. Yes, let's get into more information. We'll be right back. Keep it here.